Welcome back, everybody, and we are going to be doing session Oscar 2205, and that is transferring files to a computer. For those following in the guide, this task is found on page 18. So, Computers 101. Let's start at the beginning. Who has never copied or moved a file from one folder to another? Looking at the cameras, nobody's got their hand waving, nobody's going, oh my God, what have I got myself into? All right. I didn't think so, but have to ask because I don't want to make that assumption because otherwise everything else I'm about to say will not make sense. Okay. So who has never copied or moved a file from an external source to a hard drive? I.e. a thumb drive, an SD card, a phone to the computer. Again, not seeing anybody jumping up and down going, me, sir. Remember Horseshack? Oh, Mr. Carter. All right, good. So again, didn't think so, but I want to make sure. Final question. Who has never created a folder, renamed a folder? So far so good. Okay, so who's never used Paint, Corel, Photoshop, any program that allows you to view or manipulate an image? Good, no surprises. That's what I wanted to see. All right, so we're done. That's it. You think this session would be that easy? Of course not. We're here to learn how to do things the CAP way. So without further ado, let's get into it. Best practice is to set up a mission folder somewhere. I have mine on an actually on an external hard drive. I've marked it SUAS. All of my missions are on this hard drive. All right. It's a half a terabyte. Picked it up at Amazon for, I think it was $20. You don't have to do that. You can do it differently. You can put it on your hard drive. You can make it as a CAP subfolder. The key is setting it up. Before you even put the SUAS in the air, there are things that you need to do beforehand. And you need to get into the habit of doing this as part of your pre-mission checklist. The way you'll get that way, you're going to be ready to transfer the files when you get back. Okay. So whenever you're on a mission, you must create, or you should create, a subfolder with the mission number. Then you're going to want to create a subfolder for the sortie that you're doing. You'll notice there's 9 times out of 10, you're only going to have one sortie. But let's say you're doing what we just did in Great Lakes region. We had a 10-day exercise. Well, every day that I flew a mission, every time I flew a sortie, I was having to put a new sortie in because the sortie for the prior day was done. So those are cases where you might see more than one sortie, but 90% of the time, you're only going to get one sortie under one mission. Okay, but get into the habit of doing that. When creating the sortie file, name it with the sortie number as well as some other descriptor. The date, the purpose of the sortie. So in this case, let's take a look at sortie G0022 to show you the next step. So I have created my mission. I've created my sortie file. Now, notice in there, I have more subfolders. I like having all my forms and products under the sortie. That way I can always access them. And the forms subfolder, although not pertinent to this task, is a best procedure I thought I would share. Okay, because in your forms, you're going to have your ORM that we discussed last week. You're going to have your flight. You might need a flight release document. You might need any downloaded material for that you need on the sortie. So all of those forms go in there. Okay. They might include, as I said, they'll include the ORM matrix. If you're using your own SUAS, it may include a hold harmless. Any lances that I receive are going to be put in that form because I'm going to have to upload that later on into Wimmers anyways. Okay. Any other local forms that are required. So basically anything I needed to fly, I put in there. It's up to you if you want to do this. Again, I'm sharing my best practice. Okay. What are not optional are the other 3 subfolders. Okay. You must create at least 2 subfolders. One for the original raw untouched photos, and at least one other for the photos that you may manipulate. In other words, rename, crop, geotag, whatever. It doesn't matter what you call it, modified, manipulated, product, as long as you have a place to put the photo other than back in the raw folder. In this case, Profile 3 is a practice exercise in the Michigan Wing on creating a 2D ortho mosaic. That's a new word to some. Don't worry, we're going to get into that in a future session. As a matter of fact, we're going to get into it in the next session. Since I geotagged my finished product, I also created a folder specifically for that. I can't stress this enough. Never, ever, 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 and I'll say it one more time, ever save over the raw photo. Having the untouched photos in the raw folder will allow you to recover any photo that is accidentally damaged or lost. In other words, if you make a mistake, you now still have the original product to start over. Any questions on that, on this part?
I do, sir.
Yes.
About on average, how large is every mission you go off of? Because when you said have an external hard drive, how much do you expect to have in space per mission? Like 5 gigs, 10?
You're probably taught, again, it all depends on the number of photos that you're taking and what you're taking them at. If you're taking them at low quality, then of course you're going to, 100 photos at remember the old 480, what is it, 480 by 640? I mean, 100 photos at that quality is only going to take up less than a gig. But we take photos at high digital HD. I can't remember what the D stands for right now. My brain just went for
definition.
A while. But high definition photos, some of them are 400, 500,000 bytes a piece, right? So again, that's why you're doing that. And so I would suggest that if you're doing it on your hard drive, you always want to make sure that you've got at least 20 to 30 gigs of hard drive space available for you to do that. I mean, once you've done it, like I said, in my case, I just put it on here so that I don't have to keep it on my computer. I just bring my computer and then I I throw everything on the external. That way I'm not using up my hard drive for anything SUAS related. This normally, like today, it's here so I can pick it up and show you. Normally, this is in my flight bag that goes with me.
Right. Okay.
So,
Another thing, maybe you don't know the answer to this, but do we have a retention policy for how long we're required to keep the photos? So let's say we deliver it to the customer, they're happy with it. Is that all that there is to the transaction, or are we required to have, maintain that product and the deliverables for a number of years?
there is nothing in any of the regs in that response. And my suggestion would be, once we've delivered it to the customer, and as long as they've given us the go ahead, there's no reason why we need to keep them. I just like to keep them because it's it gives me a record of what I did.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
But that was an excellent question.
Have you considered using Google Drive?
Yes, unfortunately, Google Drive is limited, and it's not half a terabyte. That's for sure.
And it would be slow to upload all of that stuff.
When you're out in the field, sometimes you have to do it that way. Don't get me wrong. We've again, you may have to do it that way, but that's the other reason why I brought my external with me, so that I can actually literally and I'm going to get to this in a couple of slides, but I literally have a file reader that as soon as you plug it into this, and again, it's the one that I've got, as soon as I put my file reader in here, it automatically transfers everything. I've developed a code that you program it, and where you want it, it automatically sends everything off that into the raw folder, which is pretty cool. So I don't have to worry about fiddling, and I don't even have to worry about my computer. It's because it's basically got a built-in Raspberry Pi in it, so that it automatically just goes right into my raw folder. I'm not having to fiddle with anything. I put the card in the reader, plug the reader in using the USB-C, because that's a USB-C port, just goes right in there, and then the little light stops flashing and I know it's done. Now I can come back and I can do what I need to do for the ortho or for anything else that I'm doing. And I can do all that back at Incident Command or back home whenever I'm doing it. Any other questions on that? Okay, let's move on then. So there are several ways to transfer data. The easiest and most convenient way is with a card reader, right? And here's the card readers right here. There's no shortage of options in this area. Choose one that you're comfortable with. And again, like I said, I spent a little bit more money and got the one with the Raspberry Pi preload. I think it cost me, I think they were $62. It is a little costly, but it allows me to just plug it in and it just automatically will transfer without having to worry about it.
Sir, one more thing.
Yes.
It would be good to mention that at minimum, if you're buying one of these, it should be US 3.0 at minimum. So your transfer speed is going to be much faster than a regular USB 2.0.
And again, that's going to depend on the computer you have. No sense in
That's
having
true, yeah.
USB 3 if your computer only takes USB 2. But the nice thing is you bring up a good point. At this point in time, at least, everything is retrograded, right? So a USB 3 can be used on 2 and 1. You just can't move up. So excellent point. Always try to get the most advanced. And right now, I mean, card readers are very inexpensive, as you can see. I mean, this. I went to a Canadian site to take my pictures, so you can see. I mean, you know, this one here, for example, the USB, when it's got USB and micro and SD, and $27 Canadian, which is about 50 cents American. You know, but you know what I mean. Like, so you're talking $20. You know, if you take a look at all of these, you're talking $20 for the most expensive one on this site. Here's a reader for $20 Canadian, which is going to run you about $15 American if you go to the US Amazon site. This is again an advanced memory, $25. So you can see they're not that expensive. So you can also transfer the files via a USB cable. So it's more cumbersome, but it's doable. All SUASs have a USB port that you can plug in and then plug into your computer, just like you do your phone. When you go onto your computer, it'll then recognize the SUAS, and then you can download the pictures from the SD card. That's if you don't want to remove the SD card. Again, keep in mind, when we get to the checklist, you're going to see that when you do your post-flight, one of the first things that it asks you to do is to remove and store the SD card. So, when you plug into the port, it should open up File Manager dialog, and that will allow you to transfer the data. Again, I say should, because I know that it's not an automatic thing. I believe in Windows 11, I heard through the grapevine, it actually brings you up to another pop-up that asks you what you want to do with it, and then brings up your File Manager dialog. So that's why I'm saying it should. And if it doesn't, you open up your File Manager and away you go. So I've placed my SD card in my reader. I've plugged it into my computer. I've downloaded all my pictures in the raw photo. Okay, notice how these photos are in raw. If I manipulate any one of these pictures, I'm just going to overwrite the file and keep going, right? And I'm seeing people doing this, and you're absolutely right. I just said never, ever, 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 ever do that. So that's right. Exactly. I'm going to resave it in one of my other folders. So there are several programs to help you view and manipulate the image. Anybody can give me some examples? I gave one earlier, Paint. What else is there?
GIMP.
Adobe.
Adobe.
Review.
Yep.
GIMP.
GIMP. Okay. Use what's most comfortable for you, unless you've been told to use a specific program. And we're going to talk about some of those specific programs when we're done here. Okay. A lot of the information in the guide repeats what everybody already knows. We covered it at the beginning of the session. So there's really no need to insult your intelligence or waste your time. You know how to get there. You know what to do with it. You're going to need to do that. So in this instance, I did two things using two different programs that manipulates the picture. First of all, I used Microsoft Image Composite Editor to stitch together all those small pictures that you saw earlier, all of these. This was taking a picture every 2 seconds, running a pattern. I took all of those pictures, I run it through my Microsoft Image Composite Editor, and it stitches it all together to create this one big ortho mosaic. And that's what that is taking all of those smaller pictures and creating and stitching them together to create that bigger picture. This is what we call a 2D mosaic. It can't be manipulated up and down. There are programs out there that will allow you to do a 3D. So you would also, not only would you take all of these pictures straight down, but you would also do two more passes around everything at 30-degree angle and 60-degree angle. And then again, the time it takes to do all of that, it would then create a 3D. Okay. Then, that's we're going to actually practice how to do that in a couple of weeks. We're going to talk about a little bit about it tonight, but we're going to practice it in a couple of weeks. Then I used RoboGeo, which is another program we're going to talk about tonight, to geocode the picture. And how we do that, as I said, is going to be in the next session. And when I say geocode, we put the Civil Air Patrol logo in the one corner. We put an arrow pointing north in the other corner. And we date with the time and the lat and long that we took the picture and what the altitude was at the time that we took the picture. And again, we're going to get into that later on. Any questions on anything that we've discussed tonight? There we go. So I've posted the link for the quiz in the chat. And for those watching the video, the link is there. And now I'll give you about 10 minutes to complete it and give you time to hydrate, dehydrate, as the case may be. I know this was a very short session, and so it shouldn't take too long to come back, and then we can get right into the next session.